starting with 1 million luck points. Chapter 131, The Privilege of an Expert. Hearing this, Commander Zhao and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Han Piyu looked at Zhou Hao and said, "Every global elite training camp is very competitive and many cities will fight for the participation spots. This time, because it's newly established, the spots aren't as difficult to obtain. However, there are still only 4 to 5 spots allocated to the various cities. And because of Senior Zhou, I specially applied for 5 more spots in Huadong City. That's a good thing. Thank you, Senior Han, for your help." "Thank you, Senior Han." Commander Zhao and the other Grand Masters were pleasantly surprised. If they could increase the spots by 5, it meant that their Huadong City would have a few more Grand Master level experts in the future. After all, the minimum requirement for graduating from the global elite training camp of the frontline fortress was a Grand Master. For example, Commander Zhao, He Biao, Zhenhong, and the others had all come from the elite training camp. The more Grand Masters there were in the Huadong City, the faster the city would develop in the future. In the past, it would already be considered good if Huadong City could maintain the most basic quota of 4 to 5 people. However, this time, because of Senior Zhou, they had 5 more spots. Han Piyu waved his hand. "Commander Zhao, don't be happy yet. Although I've helped you apply for 5 more, the number of applicants for the global elite training camp this time is different from before. In the past, you only needed to be recommended by the various cities, but this time, you need to undergo a unified assessment." Unified assessment. Commander Zhao and the others were immediately puzzled. Zhou Hao was also puzzled and asked, "What kind of assessment will that be?" Han Piyu replied, "Didn't a new batch of virtual cabins enter Huadong City? In 5 days, the various cities will use the virtual cabins for the assessment. Only by reaching the minimum requirement can one obtain a spot." After hearing this, Zhou Hao and the others immediately came to a realization. "May I know what the minimum requirement is?" Commander Zhao asked again. "One must be able to kill 3 high-level demon warriors or a low-level demon general to obtain the spot," Han Piyu said softly. "And they have to be below the age of 20. Commander Zhao and the other Grand Masters widened their eyes when they heard this. "Senior Han, isn't this minimum requirement too high?" "That's right. Most students below the age of 20 are still in their 3rd year of high school. Even in the capital's training camp, there aren't many students who can reach such a standard. I know that the frontline fortress wants to increase the requirements, but we still have to consider the actual situation." He Biao, Zhenhong, and the other Grand Masters complained. In their opinion, the minimum requirement was too harsh. In the entire Huadong City, even Su Ling, who had just broken through to the master level, did not dare to say that she was confident in killing a low-level demon general. In other words, according to this requirement, their Huadong City probably wouldn't even be able to get a single spot. Han Piyu smiled bitterly. "It's useless for you to complain to me. This is the requirement set by the higher UPS of the Supernatural Council. It's impossible to change it again. However, doesn't your Huadong City have a student with a special physique? She can enter directly without being tested." Upon hearing this, Commander Zhao and the others felt a little relieved. Han Piyu added, "Of course, with Senior Zhou's strength, we will provide you with 2 free spots. Anyone you recommend can also be exempted from the assessment." Zhou Hao was stunned. "I can directly recommend 2 students?" "Of course. You were able to easily kill the Cloud Mink King. As long as you are willing, you can easily become a higher up and join the Supernatural Council. This much is nothing," Han Piyu said with a smile. Commander Zhao and the other Grand Masters also laughed. Peak level 9th grade Grand Masters were almost peak level existences in the human race, so it was very normal for them to have some privileges. Zhou Hao smiled and said, "Han Piyu, thank the higher UPS for me when you get back. I'll go to the frontline fortress base at the spatial rift myself when I have the time. Han Pu was overjoyed when he heard this. With Zhou Hao's strength, he would be of great use if he went to the spatial rift fortress. Then I'll be waiting for Senior Zhou. Han Pu said excitedly. Commander Zhao, there's still 5 days to prepare. You have to seize the opportunity to nurture the outstanding geniuses in the city. This opportunity is very rare. Commander Zhao and the others nodded. Han Pu left quickly. Commander Zhao looked at Han Pu's disappearing figure and could not help but ask, Senior Zhou, among the students below the age of 20 in the city, the only ones who have reached the level of a martial artist are in the focused training class of Chu City High School. Do you think we should give the spots to the students of the other high schools this time? Chapter 132, Su Ling's Worry. Zhou Hao said indifferently, the students from the other high schools didn't even seize the opportunity of the wilderness cleanup operation last time. There's no need to give them another chance to enter the elite training camp of the frontline fortress this time, lest they waste it. Yes, I'll arrange it immediately. Commander Zhao nodded. Actually, he was also dissatisfied with the performance of the other high schools. In the Chu City High School training room. As Shenjing walked into the classroom, the originally noisy training room instantly fell silent. When they saw the smile on Shenjing's face, they were all stunned. They had interacted with Instructor Shen for a long time and he was usually more serious and rarely smiled. Looks like something good has happened. Definitely. Instructor Shen didn't even smile when our class performed so well the day before yesterday. Tisk tisk, today's training will be easy again. Many students discussed in low voices. As expected, Shenjing coughed lightly and went straight to the point. I have a happy matter to tell everyone. The students immediately pricked up their ears. The frontline fortress at the spatial rift is going to establish a global elite training camp. Due to various reasons, our class obtained 10 spots. Shenjing repeated what Commander Zhao had told him yesterday to the students. The students exploded when they heard this. Damn, the global elite training camp. That's a training camp that's 10 times stronger than the Yanjing training camp. It's said that the minimum requirement for graduation is a grandmaster. Our class actually got 10 spots. It's simply heaven-defying. No wonder Instructor Shen attended class with a smile. This is a happy occasion. Not only were Wang Ming, Li Ji, and the other students excited, but even Yuan Cheng, Yun Yan, and the other Yanjing geniuses were so happy that they almost jumped up. The global elite training camp was the birthplace of true experts. It was the holy land that all the geniuses yearned to be a part of. Shenjing looked at the excited students and smiled as well. He allowed them to be happy for a while before raising his hand. The classroom quickly fell silent. I understand everyone's feelings. Since the military was able to give all 10 spots to our training class, it is a sign that they trust us and also an affirmation of our hard work for the past few days. Shenjing then continued with a serious expression, but it's also very difficult for us to secure all 10 spots. I've already told you the spot requirements just now. At present, the only people in our class who can barely reach the quota are Yuan Cheng, Yun Yan, and Su Ling. When the other students heard this, they couldn't help but be excited. Indeed, only these 3 people in their class were the only ones who could barely kill low-level demon generals. Shenjing continued, therefore, in the next 5 days, I hope that everyone can train furiously. In the next 5 days, the city will also do its best to provide cultivation resources. Whether you can break out of your cocoon and become a butterfly and change your fate will depend on your hard work for the next 5 days. As soon as he said this, most of the students seemed to have been injected with chicken blood and roared. All of them wished they could start training immediately. After all, everyone knew that this opportunity was a life-changing one. If they missed this opportunity, they would regret it for the rest of their lives. In the blink of an eye, 5 days passed. After the hellish crazy training and the fact that the city had spared no effort to provide the training class with many cultivation resources, every student in the training class had undergone a huge transformation in just 5 days. The students in the class who reached the martial artist level increased from 10 to 21. The remaining people all had third-level blood essence. Among them, 2/3 were very close to breaking through to the martial artist level. Other than that, their combat strength had all exceeded their cultivation level. However, Su Ling was just as worried as before the combat assessment. The city had provided a lot of resources this time, but none of it was able to help Zhou Hao. After all, Zhou Hao had just used a rare resource to increase his strength from the first level of blood essence to a martial artist. His cells were already unable to accommodate any other resources. Su Ling, what are you worried about? Have you forgotten my talent in finding opportunities? Moreover, this is not a combat assessment but a virtual training assessment. My life is not in danger at all. In this situation, I might be able to perform better than usual. Zhou Hao smiled indifferently. Chapter 133, The Ji Family's Supernatural Constitution. Su Ling forced a smile on her jade-like face. She knew very well that it was extremely difficult for her to perform superbly in the assessment. After all, this assessment was a joint assessment that was held by all the cities. If Zhou Hao was unlucky and encountered other geniuses, he might very well be eliminated early. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly took off the luck bracelet on her wrist and handed it to Zhou Hao. Wear it. I hope it increases your luck as it increased mine, she said expectantly. Thank you. Zhou Hao did not stand on ceremony and directly put it on. At 2:10 p.m. Shenjing walked into the classroom with a solemn expression. Glancing at all the students, he said in a deep voice, "In 10 minutes, the moment that determines your fate will arrive." As he spoke, he lowered his head to look at the information displayed on the electronic screen and slowly said, "There are a total of 1,360 people who are participating in the competition for the spots. Among them, there are 2 who have special physiques and have reached the master level. There are 7 who have reached the high level, and 62 who have reached the intermediate level martial artista Euro." Upon hearing this, all the students in the training class drew a cold breath. They did not expect the competition to be so intense. There were actually 62 people who had reached the intermediate level. It had to be known that 5 days ago, only 12 people in the entire Huaxia city had reached the intermediate level. In just 5 days, there were 50 more intermediate level martial artists. The students in the various cities have all gone crazy. The students stared at him. Martial artists needed to build up their blood essence foundation. Only by consuming rare medicinal herbs like the plant spirit would there be no hidden dangers. After Shenjing finished speaking, his voice became solemn. I believe you have all noticed it by now. The competition for the spots this time is abnormally intense and cruel. It is true that according to the rules set by the elite training camp, you only need to meet the minimum requirements. However, this virtual environment is complicated and different from the past. The people you encounter this time are all enemies. Even your classmates in this class will become your enemies. At the same time, the better the results of this virtual training, the better the resources and benefits will be after you successfully secure the spot. All the best. As time ticked by, all the students calmed down. Zhou Hao, after connecting to the virtual environment, I'll try my best to find you. Su Ling said softly. She was one of the 2 masters who was participating in the assessment this time. Her strength basically allowed her to crush the other participants. As long as she could quickly find Zhou Hao, she would be able to help him easily pass the assessment. Zhou Hao said indifferently, "Don't worry, I can handle it." Su Ling said angrily, "Stop showing off. Let's find a place to hide first." As the 2 of them were talking, the assessment began. Boom. The participating students from the various cities instantly connected to the virtual environment. Principal Zhang, the dean, and department director Hong walked into the training room one after another. They looked at the students in the virtual cabins and sighed. I hope they can seize this opportunity. We've done everything we could. At the front line fortress of the spatial rift. On the highest floor of the supernatural building. As the virtual combat spot competition for the various cities began, all the supernatural experts were staring at the wide electronic screen in front of them. The 6th grade supernatural expert, Senior Shi, who was in charge of the global elite training camp, was no exception. The screen displayed all the participants. Senior Shi, there are 2 geniuses with special physiques in this spot competition. One of them is Ji Yufan from the Ji family of Yanjing City, and the other is Su Ling from Huadong City. These 2 geniuses have already reached the master level. We've already decided to give them the spots anyway, but it's said that they both want to participate in the competition as they want to find out about their strength and results, a supernatural expert surnamed Wang said with a smile. Shi Ji nodded and muttered softly, the Ji family. Are you talking about the Ji family with the fire physique? Another supernatural expert surnamed Wei hurriedly said, yes, it's the Ji family that inherited the fire element physique. The Ji family's special physique has never been severed. Unfortunately, their descendants only inherited their physique and did not inherit the combat strength of the Ji family's first-generation supernatural expert. Shi Ji shook his head indifferently. The supernatural expert surnamed Wang looked at Shi Ji and whispered, Senior Shi, it is said that this Ji Yufan has inherited a physique that is stronger than all the other physiques in the previous generations. His talent is also stronger than the 5 generations of experts before him, including the first-generation expert. Although he is only at the master level, his combat strength is comparable to an ordinary grandmaster. Shi Ji exclaimed softly, really? The Ji family once handed over Ji Yufan's combat video to our supernatural council. Originally, they planned to directly send Ji Yufan to the fortress base, but I refused and told them to wait since you were already establishing the global elite training camp, the supernatural expert surnamed Wang said with a smile. Chapter 134, If you can't become a supernatural, you're still an ant. If that's the case, we can focus on nurturing this Ji Yufan. Shi Ji looked at the supernatural grandmaster surnamed Wang. What about Su Ling from Huadong City? How's her combat strength? Before the supernatural expert surnamed Wang could speak, Han Piyu hurriedly said, Senior Shi, Su Ling just activated her ice muscle body. Her combat strength is relatively ordinary. Oh? Ice muscle body. Shi Ji's eyes lit up. That's right, Han Piyu said in a low voice. It's a special physique activated by consuming the ice needle mushroom, a plant spirit. Shi Ji was stunned and could not help but turn to Han Piyu. Was it triggered by the ice needle mushroom? Han Piyu nodded repeatedly and explained the general situation. The other supernatural experts were shocked when they heard this. This Su Ling's luck is simply ridiculous. It's very rare for the ice needle mushroom to activate the ice muscle body, and it was only known to work in theory. Shi Ji could not help but sigh. She's indeed very lucky. Not bad. Sometimes, luck is also a type of strength. Su Ling was able to rely on the ice needle mushroom to activate the ice muscle body. Although her combat strength is ordinary, we can also consider focusing on her. Han Piyu and the supernatural expert surnamed Wang looked at each other and smiled. Are there any other participants with good talent? You can recommend a few more. Currently, everything in the global elite training camp is still in its initial stages and we are in desperate need of geniuses. Shi Ji smiled faintly. The other supernatural experts looked at each other and did not recommend anyone else. After all, to supernatural experts, only people with special physiques were considered geniuses and were worth nurturing. As for the others, no matter how outstanding they were, it was very difficult for them to cross the huge threshold of becoming a supernatural expert. If one did not become a supernatural expert, they would only be an ant in the end and would not be of much use in the foreign race's battlefield. When Shiji did not hear any more recommendations, he could not help but feel disappointed. He was the one who had facilitated the expansion of a global elite training camp in the fortress. Therefore, he thought very highly of the first batch of participants. But now, it seemed that the first batch of participants only had 2 people with special physiques. What about the Xia family of the Yanjing city, the Nangong family, and the other families with special physiques? Shiji asked unwillingly. Wang hesitated for a moment and said, Senior Shi, the Xia family, the Nangong family, and the other supernatural families with 100 years of history have long secretly sent their descendants to the first training camp. Shiji frowned. Why didn't I know? They were sent in recently, Wang said with a bitter expression. Boom. The temperature in the entire meeting room instantly fell by more than 10 degrees, and the air seemed to have frozen. Shiji's words jumped out from between his teeth. I see, they lack faith in me. Han Piyu, Wang, and the other supernatural experts hurriedly advised, Senior Shi, calm down. The supernatural inheritance families all have deep foundations and have many choices. The first training camp has been established for nearly 100 years and there are many experts there and also various resources. It's understandable that they chose to send their children there. After all, we just started building this training camp. Humph. Shiji snorted heavily. Just wait and see. I don't believe that we can't nurture a true expert. Han Piyu and the other supernatural experts smiled bitterly. They knew that Lord Shi's bad temper had returned. They weren't completely no match for the first training camp, so it wasn't a good idea for them to compete with them. However, no one dared to say anything to offend Lord Shi. In the dark and claustrophobic environment, several weak lights flashed like fluorescent lights. Swoosh. 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 Zhou and the other participants entered at the same time. Damn, where is this? Why aren't we in the wilderness area? The light is too dim. I can't see anything. How can I kill demon beasts and insects in such an environment? What a scam. Who set up this environment? Who touched my butt? After many participants appeared, they swept their eyes over the surrounding environment and complained. Most of their virtual combat training was carried out in the wilderness. There, even during nighttime, they could still easily see dozens of meters around them. Therefore, many participants were unable to adapt after suddenly entering such a dark and claustrophobic environment. Unfortunately, every second of the competition was precious. In just 10 seconds, every participant discovered that there was an additional screen on their left arm that emitted an ear-piercing sound. Please note that the rules of the competition have changed. Every participant is to follow the route map on the screen on your left arm and arrive at the signal source within half an hour. If you complete the mission within the specified time, you will successfully advance to the next stage. The loser will be immediately disqualified. At the same time, the points rankings will be displayed. As the ear-piercing sound fell, all the participants, including Zhou Hao, Su Ling, Yuan Cheng, and the others, immediately swept their gazes towards their left arms. Indeed, a screen appeared on their left arms, and a flashing red dot appeared on the screen. Their points appeared in the lower right corner. Zhou Hao subconsciously clicked on his points. Swoosh. The screen flashed and changed. The points ranking and the corresponding benefits were all displayed. Benefits of the top 10, able to choose any type of plant spirit, any secret technique worth 100 billion yuan, any set of armor and saber worth 10 billion yuan. Able to choose the location of the room number at will, male or female. Benefits of top 30, able to choose any secret technique worth 1 billion yuan, any armor and saber worth 100 million yuan. Able to choose the number of the accommodation building at will. 31st to 60th place, work harder. Those that are ranked at the bottom will have no benefits. Chapter 135, Accidentally Becoming Number 1 Again. Upon seeing this, Zhou Hao's eyes lit up. The benefits were indeed good. Of course, he did not care about resources. He only cared about the benefits of casually choosing room numbers. If he could enter the top 10, that meant that he could choose the room next to Su Ling and Zhang Yi's rooms. At the thought of being able to live next to Su Ling, he became excited. Looks like I have to enter the top 10. Zhou Hao said with a smile. Originally, he had only planned to only meet the minimum requirements, but now that the points ranking and benefits had been announced, he had no choice but to work a little harder. The other participants were the same as Zhou Hao. When they saw the corresponding benefits on the points ranking, they were all excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. However, what they valued the most was resources, especially the plant spirit that was provided to the top 10. That was an incomparably precious cultivation resource. I didn't expect the training camp to be so generous this time. They actually even dare to nurture us with plant spirits. However, the most important thing for me is still the privilege of choosing the room number. I need to get a room that's near the ice muscle body. If not for the Su Ling, I wouldn't even be bothered to participate in this Boolsh *T competition. In a damp spot, Ji Yufan looked at the screen with disdain. The Ji family was similar to the Nangong family and the Xia family. They all had supernatural physique inheritances and were very powerful in terms of resources and foundation. Originally, Ji Yufan would not have joined this new training camp. However, due to a coincidence, he heard that a woman in the Huadong city had activated her ice muscle body and was about to join the new training camp. That was why his parents made him change his mind at the last minute. After all, if he could combine his fire body with the ice muscle body, there was a very high chance that his supernatural body would be perfectly activated. When that happened, it would be even easier for him to break through to the supernatural level, and he could even become a higher level supernatural expert. Roar. Zhou Hao was about to rush towards the red dot on the signal when he heard a low roar. Immediately after, a rich fishy smell rushed into his nose. Pu. Zhou Hao then slashed out with his saber. After slashing, he ran quickly without even looking. The signal source was not fixed. Instead, it kept changing randomly. Most of the participants would encounter demon beasts of different strength on the way to the signal source. These demon beasts were only at the intermediate level. However, aside from the people who were high-level martial artists and masters, the speed of the other participants was quickly disrupted. Swoosh! Zhou Hao was extremely fast, even dozens of times faster than the signal source. In less than 15 seconds, he arrived at the signal source. When Zhou Hao arrived, voices sounded from the screens on the arms of all the participants. Please note that a participant has already arrived at the location of the signal source. This player arrived in 15 seconds, the reward is 1000 points. Hearing this voice, the 1,000 of participants were all dumbfounded. Damn, who is this? 15 seconds. Isn't that too abnormal? Did he not encounter any demon beast attacks? Damn. Could the signal source be beside him? Many participants' eyes turned red with envy. It had to be known that they had only obtained 10 points from killing an intermediate level demon warrior. However, the first participant to arrive had actually been rewarded with 1000 points, which was equivalent to killing 100 intermediate level demon warriors. If they were already so far behind from the start, how were they supposed to catch up? Zhou Hao was stunned for a moment. He did not expect that he would be the first to arrive at the signal source. There was even an announcement on the screen, and it seemed that his participation number had appeared on the points ranking. Could it be that we will be fighting each other later, he muttered, thinking of the reason for the rules. Many participants noticed the change in the points rankings when they heard the commotion. Most of them secretly remembered the number of the first place. The participants of Chu City's high school training class were stunned when they saw the number of the first place. This number is Zhou Hao's, right? 10 points. Heavens, Zhou Hao only killed an intermediate level demon warrior before reaching the signal source. I'm speechless. Zhou Hao must be near the signal source. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been 1010 points. After the participants of the training class reacted, they were both envious and excited. After all, no matter what, Zhou Hao was from Chu City High School and had already occupied the first place on the ranking list. If word got out, Chu City High School would be completely famous. That's great. I didn't expect Zhou Hao to get first place on the scoreboard. As expected of the lucky bracelet. Su Ling was even more excited than Zhou Hao for obtaining the first place. She had already thought one step ahead and realized that even if Zhou Hao was eliminated later on, with the 1000 points reward, he had basically secured a spot for himself. Zhang Yi was also happy for Zhou Hao. After the first participants arrived, the signal sources stopped changing. As time passed, more and more participants arrived at their signal sources. After half an hour, the remaining 300 participants who had yet to arrive were directly eliminated. Haha, good job, Zhou Hao. Impressive, Zhou Hao. As expected of a student from our Chu City High School. Many students from the training class who had advanced were very happy. They also praised Zhou Hao when they saw him.